Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Proud Skill Worker. Today, we have an opportunity to talk with Thomas. Thomas, thank you so much for being with us today and also picking what has to be the best backdrop we've ever had on the show. Where are you at currently, Thomas?
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm up in Mayville, Wisconsin. It's the Arctic tundra of the north, man. It's cold up here.
Just so you know, Thomas, it's not getting any warmer anytime soon. So if you feel like you're cold now, your bones are going to feel something very soon.
Listen, man, I'm from the south. It gets above 60 degrees and we go inside.
All right. Thanks, Thomas, for being with us today. I want to jump right in and just get your story. How'd you get into the trades? I mean, what got you started in what you do? And what are you doing right now? Tell us your backstory. Tell us how you got into it. Lay it all out there for us.
I've always been around, wrenches my entire life. My dad's a diesel mechanic, hydraulic mechanic. He owns his own diesel shop. So I've been working on things as soon as I could hold a wrench. So I kind of always been around it. Didn't want to work in it as a living. So, out of high school, I kind of floated around, truck drove for a long time and got bored with it. And I went to a factory as a temp and I was cleaning. That's all I was doing was cleaning. And one of the supervisors seen that and they hired me as a production worker. And then I was working on a machine called a roto feed. When it went down, I would fix it myself instead of waiting for maintenance to come out. Well, that got noticed and then they hired me onto the maintenance team as an apprentice. This is at Ball. They make cans like these. Yeah, I apprenticed there for 2 years. Massive layoff happened. I was a new guy, so I got hit and I seen an ad for Skillworks and here I am.
I love it. So where were you at with, you said you were at Ball. Where was that at?
That was in Dandridge, Tennessee. If you've ever heard of the Smoky Mountains, right smack in the middle of them.
Okay. So you were in Tennessee, living your best life, climbing up through the ranks of maintenance, started out with a broom, ended up with a wrench. Probably still had a broom, honestly, when you were doing maintenance too. Let's be serious. But there you are, middle of a layoff. That hurts. That doesn't feel good. You and Skillwork get connected. And first thing Skillwork does is send you to Wisconsin. So what are you doing now in your role? Do you feel like, is it a satisfying role? Do you think it was a good fit? Tell us a little bit about industry you're in, kind of that connection, right? Because maybe 2.5, 3 years of experience now. So how's that fit?
Well, I got kind of lucky. The machine I was working on specifically, I specialized in at Ball was called a seamer. So it puts the top of the cans on the cans. Well, this place in Mayville, they put corn and peas in cans. So they have seamers here and they needed a seamer tech. So coincidentally, I was the most perfect fit for the job. So I just came up here and was doing the exact same thing I've been doing for 2 years previous. So the job itself, it hasn't really much changed. Instead of making the cans, now I'm putting stuff inside of them. And so that process was easy. It was the whole picking up everything I had in Tennessee and moving it up here to where it snows every day of your life. And getting used to that kind of weather was a little much, and I had my baby that was a year old. She came up here with me and my wife. So getting all them moved up here too, man, that was the hardest part. As far as the everyday work, it's been the same, and it's been nice. I was nervous about coming to a different factory and not knowing what I was doing because I kind of felt like I was comfortable where I was at. I was shown things very slowly and, I got used to things and I was afraid if I came here, typically if they're hiring outsourcing mechanics, right? So they're probably pretty, pressured on maintenance. And I figured it was going to be fast paced, hurry up, get this done. This place I'm working at, man, we get 8 months of downtime to do maintenance. Production doesn't run, and they only run 4 months out of the year. It's the most relaxed place I can imagine to be for a mechanic. It's really awesome.
Those 4 months that you are running, though, it's probably at a nice slow pace, though, right? It's totally slow, and everyone just takes their time, right? That's what it looked like?
Yeah, dude. We're all part-timers working 84 hours a week, It's a pretty slow summer.
Yeah. And shoot, there's something like 156 hours in a week. If you're only working 84 of them, that's only half the time. You're going to be fine.
Part-time, man. Part-time.
Oh, shoot. I love it. So, Thomas, for you, what's been the most exciting part of your career? As you said, you didn't want to get into this. You saw your dad do it. You kind of tried a couple other things. What's been the most exciting part about your career?
Learning new things, like these two machines behind me. Learning how to weld. Just on this job alone, I've learned 4 valuable skills that I'm going to carry everywhere I go. I didn't think welding was that big of a deal, but dudes pick at welding like they pick at trucks, man. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, you could think that you've laid a really nice weld, and then you get an old head comes in here, and they'll jump all over you about how crappy your weld looks. So, but it's fun. You know, that's been the funnest part of my job so far is learning all these new things, you know, and failing at them a lot, but, you know, learning them too. You know, that's part of it.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, in order to get good at something, you got to fail at it. We've all done that, right? Nobody's perfect their first time.
Yeah, I'm really good at the failing part.
You mentioned it, so we're gonna jump right in, guys. So we're in the middle of a mini series right now called the Skills of Maintenance. So we're kind of going through this, and you mentioned just on this job, you've kind of picked up 4 skills that you'll carry with you forever. But I'm curious to know, what do you think are the most important skills in maintenance? You know, because they could be soft skills, they could be some tangible skills, they could definitely be some applicable skills, something you've learned. But what do you think are the most important skills? If you have maybe 3 or 4 of those that you would right off the top of your head go, man, you're not getting anywhere without these things.
Well, this might just be a bonus one, but my biggest thing is safety. That's a big thing. Like my supervisor here has 3 missing fingers. We've had a couple close calls here that's kind of like been like real eye-opening. So safety and taking your time, it's the biggest thing. Be respectful, but if you got supervisors and managers telling you to hurry up, man, don't. Take your time with it. Do what you got to do. If it takes you longer than it needed to, they're going to get over it by tomorrow. It's going to be fine. But don't rush something just to get yourself hurt, man. It's not worth it. So I don't know if that's a skill or not, but that's my number one thing is definitely safety. Another thing is, as far as maintenance goes, though, being able to size, you know, if you're needing to drill and tap a hole, right, and a piece of sheet metal, being able to know what size drill bit, what size tap you need right off the bat, that's a big skill, especially here, because we build a lot of guards and stuff. So being able to know off the top of your head, I got to go drill these 3 holes, and I need this drill bit, and I'm going to put a 1/2-inch bolt in it. I need this drill bit and this tap. Let's go. So that way you're not walking back and forth multiple times, back to your toolbox, back and forth to figure out what you need. You know, that's a lot of wasted time, and I don't really like to work harder than I have to, you know.
So when it comes to that, how do you learn that? Right? You know, the safety piece is easy. If I'm honest with you, I think safety is easy. There's a bunch of SOPs out there. There's a bunch of operating procedures. There's a bunch of people telling you never, ever, ever do this. And then one time someone will be like, just do it. And it's the people who violate the never, ever do this rule that typically have less fingers than 5 on their hand. Now, accidents happen. I'm just poking fun, but safety is the easy one for me. I think everywhere you go, they're like, don't do this. Just don't do it. And one day somebody urgently says, no, we need to do it. The easy answer to that is just don't. How do you get better at that skill you talk about, right? So we're talking about a punch, we're talking about a drill, which everyone goes, well, it's not that hard. Just grab them all or grab whatever. But what do you practically need to do to get better at knowing the size of that, at maybe experiencing that, at doing it? Or maybe it's just being exposed to it more. So what do you think you practically have to do to get better at that?
I'll do it every day. Coincidentally, there's a chart right here on the wall that shows you. I got one printed out in my toolbox because I didn't know. The first time they asked me to drill and tap a hole here, I was like, okay, I just drilled a hole and tapped it. I didn't know specifically what bolt size they wanted and stuff. So it's just doing it over and over again. And then before I started trying to memorize the stuff, or I wanted them to think that I knew what I was doing, you know, I was kind of like, I didn't want to embarrass anybody or myself either. So they would tell me to go drill and tap, you know, 4 holes in this guard. So I would do it without questioning or referencing the guide. And then I screwed up the entire guard. I had to start from scratch, get another piece of sheet metal out and bend it and everything over again. It was just a lot of waste of time. So doing it repetition, getting that going, and then memorizing it as you go. There's a lot of sizes that you'll do over and over and over again. You don't have to memorize that whole chart. There's hundreds of different sizes, right? But there's going to be about 4 or 5 different sizes that you're going to do over and over and over again at whatever facility you're at, right? And so you're going to memorize those the quickest, right? And then you'll have your oddball ones that you can go back to your toolbox and get that sheet out and reference it.
You brought up something, Thomas, that I think it's really hard for all of us to admit, or maybe confront, maybe not admit, but you talked about, I didn't want to ask the why because I didn't want to, whatever X is, right? Be embarrassed, feel like they're letting them down, do those things. For me, I always come back to what's the real reason for not asking the why or not asking the how? And it comes back to, and you even said a little bit, it's that sense of pride, right? Like, no, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. So one thing I always caution people of, and you're not the first one. So, and some people have said this, but like, come at these things with a position of humility too. And hey, I don't actually know what size bolt you want in that. You could say, drill punch all you want, but unless you tell me how big, we can do this all day long and both of us be right and just end up in a weird spot. So
right, yeah.
For me, approaching these things from a position of humility and putting our pride away, right? And that's hard to do, especially when it comes to our profession or our family or things that we passionately care about. It's easy to put your pride away when you're like, I have no idea what that is. You tell me. But Thomas, this is something you're turning into a career. So it's harder to say like, I don't know what you want me to do. So have you come across any of those situations where you found it would have been easier, either looking back, it would have been easier to just admit, hey, I don't know, or a time when you did do that was valuable to you?
Okay, for this contract specifically, I came in here and I get hired into Skillworks, and I came in here with a notion of I was expecting the other mechanics here to expect me to know everything. Like I was coming in as a contractor, so they thought I was going to be a pretty skilled mechanic, right? And then in return, they're getting somebody that's pretty green in the gray aspect of things, right? Like I'm fairly new to this. And so I didn't want them to be like, oh man, here we go. You know, we got a squid on our hands. Within the first week, man, they asked me if I could fabricate, and because I didn't want to I wanted to impress. I was like, oh yeah, dude, I'm your man. I can fabricate anything you want. I had no idea what to even start with, dude. I had nothing. I had never welded. I've never even cut with a torch before. I've held a plasma cutter like twice in my entire life, but they wanted me to go build this guard. The one thing I didn't know how to do was read a tape measure. So I knew what dimensions I had to get this sheet metal to cut out to. I managed to turn on the welder. It was a TIG welder. And man, I held it around in the corner and I watched YouTube a little bit to figure out what I needed to do a little bit. And ran a bead. I wouldn't even call it a bead, man. It was rough. It was rough. And after about an hour of me in there struggling, the lead mechanic came in here. He said, hey, man, you don't know how to weld, do you? I said, I've never even held a whip before in my life. And he said, man, you could have just said that. So, and then after that, he spent the rest of the day showing me. He gave me the rest of the week to practice. And he came in there anytime I had questions and helped me out. Basically for 2 weeks, all I did was weld. So that way I could weld for them. So looking back on it, I wish I was just honest up front, because I embarrassed myself more, saying that I could fabricate, when in reality, it took them about 3 seconds to see that I had no idea what I was doing, So
we do it though, right? We put ourselves in situations where it's so easy to understand and prove like you don't know what you're doing. We do it all the time, right? Like, hey, I could do that.
Yeah.
Then do it. Well, I can't do it now. I'll do it later.
Yeah.
I encourage you, and I appreciate you telling that story, because I think there's a lot of people out there, right, who are passionately pursuing a career, or who are desperately pursuing a career, just trying to get a foot in the door and go, yep, I can do that. What you're really doing is two things, and you know this, is you're setting yourself back, because it would have taken you all of 30 seconds to say no, and the guy would have been like, great, let's go do this real quick, and I'll show you how. We'll run through it. We'll move forward. And two, you're kind of compromising your integrity and what people will trust you with in the future. If something little like that, you're willing to be like, yeah. Now you're in a good situation. It didn't seem to impact you at all, but that's something that we as people would look back on and go, is that really something we can trust long-term? So I think that's encouraging too, right? You got to know, hey, it's just better to come out in front. So I appreciate you telling that story. It's an inspiring story too, because when you tell someone you're ill-equipped, what did they do? They didn't run you out the building. They equipped you with a skill. They gave you a skill.
What I've learned here is when they ask you to do something, you don't know how to do it. This might not be at every factory, but at least here, they're going to show you, because they're asking you to do it because they don't necessarily want to do it. So they're going to be more proactive to show you how to do something, because nobody here likes to weld. So they taught me how to weld, so they didn't have to do it. And so it just, I think that goes pretty much with anything. I've learned it here on a few different situations. If you don't know how to do something, throw the pride out the window and tell them, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing here. Every time I've said that, at least here, they've shown me how to do it. That's why I've been able to learn so much here.
I love it. Thomas, this is my favorite part of the show. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to give you 3, 5, 45, 180 minutes. I'm going to give you an imaginary soapbox, a platform to stand on, to speak to every maintainer in the United States, in the world, and just say, what's the one thing you would tell the industry as a whole right now? If you could get into everybody's ear with a whatever program, what would you say to everybody?
I don't know. I think I'd rather that be reversed on me and have everybody tell me things because I don't really know too much just yet. I don't know. Just hang in there, learn as much as you can, and try to recruit more people in, man. Because it seems like it's a dying trade, man. Everywhere I go, they can't get enough people to work. I guess show pride in what you do too. One of the things again that I've learned here is after I leave this place, I've been here for 9 months, and after I leave this place, the things that I've built and worked on is going to stay. So my name is staying behind. So take pride in the work that you do. And I know it can get monotonous and seem like you're going to work every day doing the same old thing, but you're going to leave this place in a few months, you know? So, and whoever comes in after you and 10 years down the road, the guard you build or something like that, it's still going to be sitting there. And then they're going to bring up, oh, you know, that old boy Thomas or so-and-so built that 10 years ago. And they're going to look at your welds or your fabricating and they're going to be like, oh man, that's pretty good. And I just take pride in that and try to convince more people, more young people to come into the trade, you know, because they don't all have to be, you know, these movie star careers, a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. You don't have to have something super glamorous. You know, this is a high paying, really well respected trade. Once you get into it, you see the amount of people that respect it, and it's very valuable. It's not going anywhere. There's always going to be people that need things fixed, you know, and the people that don't know how to fix them. And learn as many skills as you can. You can never stop learning. My dad's been a diesel mechanic for all of his life. Right? He's 55 years old. Dude can barely stand up now without losing his balance, but the man's still out there learning new things every day. He's one of my biggest inspirations. And that's the thing is like, I'm trying to learn electricity now. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Learn as much as you can, because one thing I was told growing up is the more things that you learn, especially as a maintenance mechanic, the harder it is for them to get rid of you.
That's right.
You know, so if you just know how to bleed hydraulic lines, or you just know how to repair a certain machine, right? That's good and all. But if someone else can come in, they can do that, but they can also run a mill and a lathe, and they can do electricity, they can do hydraulics. They're going to keep that guy before they keep you, right? That's where this trade kind of gets a little bit selfish. You got to learn as much as you possibly can if you plan on staying in it. So that way you're impossible to get rid of. But yeah, I mean, as far as telling other people what they should do, man, that's about all I got. I mean, any advice. Kids getting into it, man, just stick with it. You're going to get a lot of grief from the older guys. They're going to rag on you a bit, but you can't take that to heart, man. They're just giving you a hard time. That's just part of the trade. And that's pretty much anywhere you go, man. Family in the military, they say it's the same way, even worse. I got a brother that's an electrician. He went to the same thing. And I got a cousin that's a lawyer. She goes to the same stuff in a law office. They're going to rag on you, the older people, but that's just part of it. Stick with it. You're going to fail so many times. Every day you're going to fail at something. You might fail before you even get to work, you know, because you didn't wake up when you were supposed to wake up. It's going to be rough at first, but it pays off over time. You got to gain the respect of these older guys. So they pick on you and stuff, give you a hard time, laugh at you when you fail, but you keep on coming back in every day. You know, that you earn your respect and you start to see that slacking off a little bit. And they start helping you more and more and more. And it kind of starts to level off after a while. But yeah, man, as far as giving other people advice, man, I don't, I'm the one that needs the advice. I don't really know
I love it.
much else, you know.
I love it, man. I think you're right though, right? I mean, if we want to boil down what you said, stick with it, keep learning. Those are the two things you need to do. Stick with what you're doing and keep learning new things. And that's how you be successful. I think that's easy enough. I think that's great advice. I think it's great input. I think it's something everybody can afford to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't have to stay in maintenance. You know, you can take these skills outside of it. Climb the corporate ladder if you want to. The more skills you learn, the better. I had to work with seasonals this year for the first time, right? And they predominantly did not speak English. Like most of them had no English speaking ability. They're all Spanish speaking. So I started learning Spanish. Right? Downloaded an app and started learning, because here you're not just a mechanic. You have to supervise during the summer too. So like I'm a part of a department that has 2 mechanics in it. And so the 2 mechanics are kind of the area supervisor. So we fix the machines, but then we make sure all these people go to breaks when they need to. And And if they have any kind of personal problems or anything at work, we kind of have to handle it. Getting that communication back and forth without a translator was pretty rough. So I had to learn Spanish, man, on the fly. I went home and was using this app called Duolingo to try to learn how to communicate with these people. And one of the most frustrating aspects of my job that I've ever had, I'm not a people person, and to be involved with people who doesn't speak the same language as me was like, man, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But halfway through it, man, we got rolling. You know, I could say a few words, and by the end of the year, I could do full sentences and have a conversation with these people. And it was good. It was a good learning experience. And now I can put bilingual-ish on my resume.
Keep learning to get all the way to bilingual. Leave that ish off there. Keep learning.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas, a huge thank you to our guest, Thomas, for being on the show. And thank you to all you who listen and watch. Please leave a comment, reach out to us. If you have questions for Thomas, for us, about what we're doing, how we're doing it, please leave a comment, reach out. Thanks so much, Thomas. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.